Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, you are a good friend of Gabby Giffords. In fact, you were down here this week. You came when the president came. Yes. What is your lasting impression of what happened?
My lasting impression is that out of an evil act, we have had an opportunity to see the overwhelming goodness that exists in this country. And that as horrific as this act and tragedy has been, the opportunity that we have had this week to see how many incredible people there are in our country. And having been here a number of times to campaign for Gabby and having talked to Gabby about the pride that she has in representing Tucson and the 8th Congressional District, every ounce of that pride was evident and warranted this week.
How is she doing? You're going to see her again? You've seen her once?
Yes, you know, she's doing better every day. Wednesday was just a miracle to witness that myself and our good friend Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and Leader Nancy Pelosi were able to be by her side with Mark and her parents and have her open her eyes, you know, just in our, as a result of, we hope, our urging her on to come back to us and rejoin the activities that girlfriends do together.
Some of these incredible people here saved not only other people's lives, but your friend's life as well. And we've heard a lot from them that they feel they were doing what they had to do as people and they don't feel that they were heroes. Do you think they're heroes?
There's no question that they are heroes. And I mean, there's just no question. There's no question. I mean, I think every one of us hopes that our immediate reaction would be the selfless response, would be to spring into action to help someone else. But I guess you really never know until you're faced with that opportunity.
Dr. Bowman, I know that you're not comfortable with the idea of being called a hero.
That's correct, and I don't think any of us are, including Daniel.
I agree.
I think that there were maybe heroic things done by normal people that means we're human beings. And I think that's, to me, one of the most lasting impressions, is to see what people were doing for someone else. Injured people helping someone else more injured. Not concerned about themselves and not screaming and not yelling, medic, medic, helping the person next to them. It gives you a lot of hope that we're doing it the right way somehow.
But nonetheless, if I might, I've covered a lot of war, a lot of tragedy, and certainly I know that one tries to hide and tries to get out of a bombing situation or a shooting situation, and you did run towards it. You did, Patricia, you did what you had to do in that circumstance, and yet you're uncomfortable with the idea of having the hero label attached to you.
I am. This is the hero. If I'm a hero, he's a superhero. My son says that I should just say thank you, that the community needs heroes right now, but it's still hard to do.
I did what anybody else would do, and I'm just so glad that I had the opportunity to do what I did, because after seeing the people killed, you know, right there beside me, if he'd have got another clip in that gun, why, it would have been disastrous. At the time, I did not know that he was reloading his gun when he went by right in front of me. But when I responded, why, there was an opportunity there, because somebody picked up a folding chair and came down on the back of the gunman's head, and that gave me the opportunity to grab his arm, you know, come up like this and push him down. I had a chokehold on him. Roger had his knee on the back of his neck, and every time he would move, I would tighten my grip and Roger would push down more on his face. He was laying like this, you know, and...
You gave the shooter a black eye, didn't you?
Well, when he hit the pavement, why, we were holding him down, and he was he was saying, ow, 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 ow. And of course, I didn't know Roger before this happened, but I said, Roger, let up a little bit. And Roger says, I don't care. And he put more pressure on him.
And you yourself were grazed by a bullet.
I heard, you know, the first shot, and I looked, but then I could see the people falling, you know, or sitting in chairs, but they were just slumping forward. Then everybody was trying to get out of the way and get to the ground. And I did the same thing. I felt the bullet hit the back of my head, and it was just a stinging, burning sensation. When the shooting stopped, I stood up. And when I stood up, I did not know that that was the gunman right in front of me. And it's, you know, it's just instant reaction is what it amounts to. But when I saw the chair hit him, I knew that must be the man. And that's when I had an opportunity, and that's what I did, what I think anybody under the circumstances would have done the same thing.
Just go to my colleague, David Muir. You have people who you want to talk to there. Tell us their stories.
Well, Christiane, we hear about these ordinary people doing extraordinary things. The first responders at the scene, and I wanted to bring in Dr. Bilal Joseph, if you could stand. And I'm curious what you've learned as someone who's trained in this by the so-called ordinary people who really did the groundwork for you.
You know, we do this every day, and that morning, you know, when I walked into the emergency room and saw so many people, and the same echoes that come from the first responders at the scene was echoed in the hospital. And I can tell you, people were coming in who didn't need to be there. I think that it was a controlled chaos that just became harmony.
Christiane?
I just want to go to Ken Darushka, who was there that day. And tell me what happened, because you really saved your wife's life, and she's sitting right next to you. And certainly to her, you are a hero.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but when we came to visit with the Congresswoman, signed in with Daniel on the clipboard, we were 8th in line. As I turned to walk back towards her, now I'm only a few feet away from my wife, what I thought were firecrackers went off, and I turned over my shoulder and I saw it wasn't firecrackers. He was there with a gun and just coming towards me and firing randomly, it looked like. I immediately got to her. I took her and threw her down rather forcefully. I'm kind of a big guy, and I think I injured her pretty hard. But I threw her down on the ground and put my arm over her head. And just as he walked up at this point in time, he was firing, and we were at the feet of some people that were in chairs that were hit, and my arm was hit with a bullet. And I felt that pain, but I kept her down, and I just waited for the next one because I really thought that was going to be it, that I was on my way out.
You thought you were going to die?
I thought that was it, yeah. Because after the first shot, I thought the second one was going to be the final one. Because as I looked up, I saw a sight that I see every night, and it was a lot of blood, a lot of, I mean, Carol was just covered with blood from head to foot from the people that were sitting in chairs.
You say you see it every night. Do you have flashbacks?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what, the physical healing, you know, will take a little time, but it'll be fine. It's the emotional healing that's going to take time. That's going to be the hard part.
Well, I'd like to ask Anna Ballis, you were also there that day, that moment. How are you coping with it after what you did? Tell me a little bit about what you did that day and how you're coping.
Well, I never quite made it into Safeway. It was quite the different trip going to a grocery store. I had shown up at the, I did not go there for the event. When I got out of my vehicle, I was actually going to go into the other entrance to the store, but saw that there was a crowd gathering and thought I would go over and check it out, see what was going on. So as I was walking into the store, I did not know it at the time, but Ron Barber had reached his hand out to me and said, "Please come back and see us." He says, I would love to have you meet her.
This was to come back and meet the Congresswoman?
Yes. I do remember looking over and seeing Christina, and she was quite excited about meeting the Congresswoman, jumping up and down. And unfortunately, she never made it.
Did you try to help?
I was not close enough to her. When the gunfire started, I leaned up against a concrete pillar to basically save my own life. Went to the ground and got under a table. And just covered up my head. I looked up and the first person closest to me was Ron. And I had noticed that he had been shot twice. And when I did crawl out from underneath the table and got over to him, he was more concerned about everybody else. He didn't care about himself. I do not truly believe he knew the extent of his injuries at that time. And like others have said, you don't think about what you're going to do, you just do it. So I was able to pretty much apply pressure to the wound that he had in his groin area and just stayed there with him and told him he'd be okay.
Bill? Christina Taylor Greene is such an elemental part of this story. You say you're looking forward to having a private meeting with her parents to grieve together. What will that conversation be like?
The conversations that I've had with John on the telephone, I've only spoken with John. We basically barely get started and we both devolve into tears. Excuse me. We are very fond of one another. Roxana, the morning after this event, despite having to be at the lowest depths that a human could experience in this life, took time to email Susie and assure her of their love for our family, of their appreciation for the relationship that Susie and Christina had forged, and that we had all their best wishes for Susie's full recovery. They have demonstrated gracefulness that is extraordinary under the circumstances. We'll be bonded forever by this tragedy. I just feel the need to share with them. I can't imagine what they're going through, and I don't begin to predict what it's going to be like to get together. I feel the need to share grief with them.
And does Susie talk about Christina, even though she's trying to heal physically? Does she talk about her?
Susie has had Christina on her mind from the moment she woke up. I sense that once she did finally lose consciousness, she had described right before that their hands still being held, being on the ground, absolutely eyeball to eyeball with Christina, and that is the image that was in her head until she woke up after her surgery. We haven't wanted to initiate conversation on the topic, but much has come forth from her in bits and pieces. She has initially demonstrated a good deal of anger over the fact of what's happened. That kind of, I mean, obviously is more than justified. It's almost helpful to hear. All she wanted to do was to give a little girl a chance to see what she herself could become someday in a way that Susie and her generation felt she never could. And so that's driving the anger. She's a strong woman, and she knows rationally that there's no blame to be apportioned. But the fact of the matter is, she took a little neighbor's girl away that morning and was unable to bring her home.